Today we're going to talk about spear phishing. Specifically, what is spear phishing? What do spear phishing emails look like? And how you can protect your business. What is spear phishing? So spear phishing is like phishing, but a bit more advanced. The attackers have generally done a bit of research and they want to target specific individuals, specific companies, or specific industries. And it's sent out at a much smaller scale, but it's in a way that's much more believable, much more realistic, and it's going to be more likely that the person that's receiving the email is going to click the link. The intent is still to deceive the person that's receiving the email, and that deception could be to gain access to computer systems, to install malicious software, or it could be, again, just to steal personal information, usernames, passwords, addresses, and so on. So what do spear phishing emails look like? As we've already said, they're much more realistic and harder to spot. And this is because they might research you. It might even be an email that comes from a supplier, so you immediately trust it. It's not necessarily from large companies, it could be from small companies, but they're very specific and very targeted. We've got some examples that we can take a look at. I've got one up here on my screen. And this is a real phishing email. This is a case that we dealt with recently, whereby a small financial company had been hacked, and phishing emails were then being distributed out to their customers. So again, this email, we've put black blocks in it to protect the identity of the company, and I've also replaced some bits. So we'll just talk through it from top to bottom and talk about things to look out for. So the subject of this email, it currently says company document, but what it actually said before was the name of the company that it was sent from. So this company was not by no means a big company. It has about 5 employees, and they'd sent it to another company that had 2 employees. So they see this, and they had actually been in contact with them in recent months, so they thought it was completely legitimate. So that's the first thing. The from address, I've replaced that to managing director, but this was actually sent from the email address of the financial services company. They'd breached their emails, they got in, and they then used this access. They used the email address of the managing director to then phish other companies that were actually customers of the company that was hacked in the first place. So it was sent to a large number of addresses at first, but this is, for me, the first telltale sign that this is a phishing email. So if we look at the to address, you can see here that it's sent to no reply at, and then the address. Now we've blocked the address because this was the actual company that was sending the email to, so it was copying in an address at that company. And the reason that's a telltale sign is because I'm receiving the email and I can't see myself in the to field on this particular message. So the way they've sent this, they've done something called a blind carbon copy. So instead of putting my address in the to field, they've put me in the BCC field. So when I've received it, I don't actually see myself as one of the intended recipients. And that is a telltale sign. The subject we've already discussed, but as you can see, again, it's the name of the company, and then document, and the body of the email. So you've received a document from, and this was the managing director's name. Preview to access with a link on the preview. And if you notice at the bottom, again, this is all blacked out, but this was a like-for-like copy of the managing director's signature of the financial firm. So they've gone to great lengths to spoof this email. If we look at the preview address, we can see that it does actually take us to a sharepoint.com site. Now, that is quite an advanced type of attack, because sharepoint.com is a legitimate site, so they have in some way compromised a sharepoint.com site, and then they've used it to host their malicious landing page. So it's hard to spot. This could be a legitimate link for all we know. I think the thing with this particular email was that if we'd have queried it with the director, because while the companies that received it, yes, they had been talking to this company, they weren't expecting a document to be shared with them. They didn't expect this. And also, it's very strange that a company would send you an email sharing a document without any explanation as to what that document is. I always say that if it doesn't seem right, it definitely isn't. That's the only approach you can take when it comes to phishing and spear phishing. But when we actually click that link, we can look at what came after. So this page here, this is the landing page that you go to when you click that link. And as you can see, it looks fairly believable. It looks like it's a OneDrive document, and what gives it the further reason to believe that it is real is that it's hosted at sharepoint.com. But it's worth remembering that anyone can create a website at sharepoint.com, which is what's happened here. So this essentially, this document is posing as OneDrive, but it's not. And in that document is again another link that takes you to another website. If you click that link, and if you actually hovered over that address, you'd see the domain was a completely different domain, and it took you to a page that looked like the Office 365 portal. It was exactly the same. It was an exact clone of the Office 365 login page, which is where people log in to access emails, company data, and so on. And what happened was, if you filled that form in, the attacker would then 2 days later actually use those credentials to then access your account and then perform the same attack on your clients. So yeah, as you can see, it's a far more believable attack than your standard phishing email, and this attacker has gone to some lengths to actually pose as a director of a small company using his email, using his signature. So yeah, a very advanced attack, hard to spot. But I think with what we've gone through, the key things to point out are, always check who it's from, the to field, is it actually going to you? And is it something you're expecting? If it's not something you're expecting, then question it. And it might be a case if you don't just email them, you pick up the phone to them, because sometimes we have seen instances whereby an attacker has actually replied to an email querying whether it's legitimate or not. So you do have to be careful with this kind of thing. And again, unfortunately, this stuff can slip through email filtering. There is nothing in this document from the offset that's malicious as such. It's linking to sharepoint.com. It's from a legitimate source, albeit their account has been compromised. It's certainly, spear phishing is much harder to spot than phishing. So how do you protect your business from spear phishing? As we always say, it's got to be down to a multi-layered approach, defense in depth, so technology, people and processes. So I'm going to give you 5 top tips and ways in which you can protect your business. So tip number 1, email filtering. But we'll add something to that and we'll say email filtering with advanced threat protection. Advanced threat protection, there's various different solutions out there on the market, but certainly some of them will actually look at the intent of the message, it'll look at the body of the message, and it'll try and establish if it is a spear phishing email. It's not 100%, but it does catch some of these more targeted types of attacks, so it's a good extra layer to have. Tip number 2, training. Again, training is key. You need to know what to look out for, especially when it comes to spear phishing. They're very, very hard to spot. Hopefully with the things that we've gone over, that'll help you to spot future ones if you are unfortunate enough to receive a spear phishing email. Tip number 3, ability to report phishing emails. Again, you need to be able to report these to your colleagues, just to make it clear that you've received this email message and it's not legitimate. It's trying to get you to install malicious software, or you think it's malicious. Again, you might receive this message, as might 10 other colleagues. So if you spot it first, let them know, and that way the chances of an attack actually getting through are far slimmer. Tip number 4, other processes and controls. So it's important to put in processes that are hopefully going to stop phishing emails and spear phishing emails from causing any damage to your business. And the reason this is important, because spear phishing combined with other attack types such as business email compromise, it's often used in a way to steal money from businesses. So an example of this is you might get a spear phishing email that demands payment of an invoice, and through information collection and things they know and understand about your business, and at that particular point in time, there's been many cases where businesses have paid invoices of thousands and thousands of pounds under false pretenses. Basically, they've received this spear phishing message, the invoice was false, it never actually existed, but the person in accounts didn't know that, and the person that's sent them the email has said they've just spoken to her director, who said it needs paying as soon as possible, but he's currently on holiday, and this is the lengths that they will go to actually steal money, perform these types of cyber attacks. That's why, for things such as payments, you might have a process in place whereby you never make payments that are requested via email. You always do a verbal confirmation over the phone. Another manager will sign it off. It's taking all those types of things into consideration. Tip number 5 is email configuration and domain configuration. There are certain settings, and I'm not going to go into them in great detail because they're very technical, SPF, DKIM and DMARC. If these are not configured correctly or not configured at all, it could mean that people could spoof your business email address and use that as a way to spear phish your customers or even your staff internally. So again, this is quite a key way to stop spear phishing attacks and phishing attacks. Defense against cyber attacks is more important than ever. Click the link below to bolster your defenses against cybercrime.